and welcome to this broadcast. My name is Patrick Kamara. We're coming to you live from the Serena Conference Center, and we're looking into the issue of population because July 11th is the World Population Day. And when we come to Uganda, we have the fastest growing population, among the fastest growing population in the world. And also, our country is largely made up of young people. So Uganda is a young nation. But these young people also bring potential, but also they face a lot of challenges. So we'll be looking into the challenges they face, but also their dynamism that they have. Let me introduce the panel that I have this evening in the studio. I have Stella Kigozi Makumbi, Director Information and Communication, National Population Council. Stella, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm happy to be here.
I have the Assistant Commissioner Planning and the Ministry of Local Government, Mr. Asimwe Balam Mwizuche. Asimwe, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, and good evening to you and all the viewers. Thank you.
No, let me begin with you, Stella, because we have a young population in Uganda, but the young people have their challenges, but also they can be the engine of development because they're dynamic. But we want to start with the problem they face, and one of them is the problem of teenage or child pregnancy. Why is ending child marriage and teenage pregnancy, in your view, critical to the development of the country?
Thank you so much, Patrick, and good evening, listeners and viewers. Patrick, you've asked a very pertinent question, why ending child marriage and teenage pregnancy is key to this country's development. As you're well aware, the biggest proportion of our population, over 78%, is made up of young people under the age of 30. But to further break it down, about 33% of our population are aged 19 and below. So that is a big proportion of young people that are poised to drive this, the country's development agenda if given the right skills, the right tools, and incentives as well. So with challenges of teenage pregnancy, their development can actually be, it can be curtailed. So it is important that we actually focus on that group of young people and ensure that they get the right skills, they get a good education as well, but also ensure that the girl child goes to school.
You know, it is interesting because when you look into other countries, for example, China today, they're so worried because the population is aging. In Denmark, they're so worried because they no longer have young people. In fact, they had a program called Do It for Denmark, and you produce for Denmark because they're worried. And yet here, the population is so young. And I'm thinking that should be our biggest advantage, and even reproducing and getting more when people are worried. Why should we be worried if a population is going to increase when people are produced when they're young?
Actually, Patrick, as the National Population Council, our interests are in quality of the population. So you ask a very pertinent question. Quality of population is very important. But producing when they are young is also a challenge because one, the bodies of those young girls are not yet ready, and statistics actually show that over a third of the maternal mortality in this country, the deaths that happen to mothers while giving birth or out of pregnancy-related concerns actually happen to teenagers, those under 19. Secondly, when girls give birth when they are young, they are actually halting a lot of their potential for schooling, for skilling, and development. The statistics actually show once they get pregnant, they drop out of school to look after the babies, and yet they are babies themselves, so to speak. So it is important that the teenage pregnancy is actually halted in this country.
Let me bring in here Commissioner Mwijuchi, as Assistant Commissioner for Planning in the Ministry of Local Government. By the way, how serious is the issue of teenage pregnancy in Uganda?
Thank you, Mr. Kamara, for that good question. You see, the teenage age and population is the base for the future population. So if the population at the teenage cohort is not properly looked after and the issues related to the pregnancy, then as you observed, when you reach the middle age, you will have a poor quality population because they will have already lost out at the time of the teenage cohort. So these teenage pregnancies are some of the drivers of the poor quality of life that these adolescents in future will have. So if we have interventions, if we look at eliminating the issues related to the teenage pregnancy, then the future generation of that cohort will be protected and it will be better off. So the country will have a really productive population because we will have solved the problems at the time when this age group was.
So what is causing high teenage pregnancy in Uganda?
There are a number of drivers for that that cause this problem. Among these, we have the cultural norms and issues, and then we also have issues related to education. Where
education in what sense?
Education in a sense that if these youth are not put into the education stream and they are able to stay there longer and learn, then they are vulnerable to temptations that will lead them into teenage pregnancies. So if we address this question through educating the youth, then we are able now to have some control in terms of addressing the issues of the teenage pregnancies.
Okay, it looks like the drivers are known, and I'm wondering from the perspective of the National Population Council, if you know the drivers of teenage pregnancy in Uganda, then really you know the solution. But before you can tell us the solution, I think I also need to let our people who are joining us on our virtual platform get to know the people we have. We have the Kao Chankwanzi, Marion Pamela Tukahurira. We have Andrew Napeja Kim, who is the chairperson Moroto. We have the chairperson, district chairperson of Untoroko, Kasoro Williams. We also have the district chairperson for Kamuli, and I just want to know who is going. Let me begin with you, Mr. Kasoro, the district chairperson for Untoroko, Kasoro Williams. And good evening, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Patrick. Thank you for having us on the show.
All right, I just want to know from you if you can give us a snapshot of the child marriage and teenage pregnancy problem in the Rwenzori sub-region where you are.
Yeah, Patrick, and the fellow participants here, the situation in the Rwenzori sub-region is not good. Early pregnancy, child marriages and teenage pregnancies are high. Virtually out of 10 girls, 4 get married before completing P7.
You know, that is a very serious issue you have raised, Mr. Kasoro Williams, because before completing P7, these are really children. These are like 13-year-olds in the Rwenzori or in Toroko, to be precise. So how do you deal with this? How do you stop it? Because I can imagine it's also a cultural issue. It appears I'm having comms challenges to get to Williams Kasoro in Ntoroko district. We had you initially, but now we can't. So I might have to be forced to go to the district chairperson Moroto, if I can, who's also joining us via Zoom, and that is Mr. Andrew Napeja Kim. I just want to know from you, Andrew, how has culture fueled child marriage and teenage pregnancies in your region of Karamoja? If you can hear me, Andrew. All right. Okay, I'm going to have my colleagues on the technical department work on the technical issues we have so that we can have those joining us by virtual means loud and clear. I'm sure that will be sorted very shortly. But earlier, before I introduced them, I was asking you, Stella, you know what the drivers are, the problems, how they come. Then surely you should have a medicine for such a problem.
Thank you, Patrick, for that question. I wish it was, such an obvious solution, like maybe taking a Panadol when you have a fever or an aspirin. But the drivers of teenage pregnancy are actually deeply rooted within our society, within our communities. And the Commissioner has talked of some. I will add on some of the drivers. The biggest one being the issue of poverty. And this poverty, as you're well aware, there is, at household level, challenges of even getting a meal. So what happens, there are some studies that have shown grandparents in houses, maybe where the parents have passed on, they send the girl child to go look for something. They will tell her, you go and bring us something. But this girl does not have a business, she doesn't have a shop. So what does that mean? They are sending her to go and get something from a man or a boy.
You know, that's very difficult to believe, Stella.
It is
because
true.
In all the homes where I've grown in Uganda, people have values, have etiquettes, have manners rooted in our culture. I wonder which grandfather is going to ask for something to eat from a 13-year-old. That 13-year-old has no business because you want to mold your child to become a responsible person. Are you saying we have lost it to that level in our families?
Patrick, these are the challenges of poverty, and we need to be able to deal with them head on. We cannot hide our heads in the sand anymore. And there's also, of course, the issue of self-esteem and lack of livelihood skills or social skills by these young people. They are driven to do such things by their peers, for instance, that make it glamorous to have a relationship at an early age, to have an older man who's giving you a sweet, who's giving you a mobile phone, So this peer pressure also drives the young girls. But there's also the aspect of being out of school, and it is important that right now in the context of COVID, many young people are actually out of school. So what is happening? The anecdotal reports are actually showing from different parts of the country. You will get reports in the media, the number of girls that have been defiled, or the number of reports that have been recorded by the police. So we are speaking facts, Patrick. These things are happening, and because the causes are deeply rooted, we need to do more.
So you said one of them is lack of skills. If they can have a livelihood, if they can learn something to do with their hands, then perhaps they can be useful to themselves and useful to the communities in which they live.
Yes.
Mr. Simo, you are a commissioner in charge of planning, and so in the local government. And so you should be the people in the local government who are looking at having a quality population, and the quality population you talked about is a population that is skilled. So why can't the government be able to provide training skills so that our young people have added value in their lives and they can be of value to the communities in which they live?
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. My may first state that issues to do with teenage pregnancy and adolescent health are multi-sector. The government is involved, citizens are involved, CSOs and other players are involved. From this perspective of government, definitely there are actions which are being taken to address some of those issues like you have mentioned, the skilling and the rest. And there are a number of policies which government has come up with to address such issues. So what I can say, I think maybe we need to look at how are we implementing these policies to ensure that we address the problem at hand. There are a number of good policies for skilling Ugandans. Mm-hmm. We have in the formal education, we have the BTVET, which is aimed at skilling the Ugandans, equip them with skills. We also have other players, the religious institutions and others. They are also having a role to play in this skilling of Ugandans. So I can say the strategies, the policies to address some of these problems related to the youth are in place.
What is the strategy and what is the policy, Mr. Simwe, if it is not giving us dividends? What is it for? What is that strategy for? What is the good is that policy for? If we still see increased teenage pregnancy in Uganda, it appears the policy is not working or somebody is not implementing it.
Yeah, the fact that we are not seeing these results immediately does not mean that we don't need that strategy or policy. But what I can say is that we need the consistency and the ability by the various institutions and players of government and other stakeholders to continuously interpret these policies and be able to.
So could it be possible, Mr. Simwe, that you have the programs, you have the policies, you have the best intention, but the foot soldiers on the ground are not putting their act together?
I think they are doing their best. I can't say they are not putting it up to the expectations. They are doing their best to ensure. For instance, if we look at one of the drivers like gender-based violence, we have a good infrastructure and system in local government and the community development who are following up these issues. Okay. Who are tracing the issues that my colleague here talked about, which are in the households.
Let me bring in here other people who are joining us on the virtual platform. I have Marion Pamela Tukahurira. Marion Pamela Tukahurira, you are the Chief Administrative Officer for Chankwanzi. What more should be done to support local government to fight against child marriages and teenage pregnancy? Because, you know, the cow, you're like the engine of the district. What can we do?
Thank you very much and good evening, viewers. Yes, this is a program, but it's being addressed and efforts are in place. Institutions have been built, enforcement is being done. The RA marriages are informed by poverty and cultural norms, as Baram has indicated. And what ought to be done is to ensure concerted efforts, enforcement. And then there is need, and it's being done to disseminate information and communicate to the different stakeholders.
You know,
make use of the
Yes, go right ahead, Marion.
Make use of the partnerships that we have in the local governments and elsewhere to support information and communication, but also seize opportunities of government to eradicate poverty from the communities, because part of the drivers, like as mentioned earlier, is the poverty levels. And the government is doing a lot in terms of addressing the poverty issue. We've got different programs geared towards getting people out of that situation. The youth are being given programs, youth livelihood, and yoga. The parents are also being given their own affirmative programs, the women entrepreneurship, the women fund. So efforts are being made to make sure that we address the drivers of poverty, to disseminate information and communicate, to use the different leaders and stakeholders to engage communities, to use the staff and the government workers to advocate and follow up cases of early marriages, to eradicate poverty from the community, because part of the drivers, like as mentioned earlier, is the poverty.
Okay, I'm getting a problem there. I didn't hear the last sentence. I didn't hear the last sentence that you said in addressing the issue of child marriages. In fact, yesterday we said the perfect word should be child marriage and not early marriage, because early marriage, somebody can marry at 20 and 19 and is early and it's okay. But child marriage, I suppose, is the issue that is a problem. So, yeah, but if I can still hear me, Marion, what about the family? I think there's something wrong with the family, because if you're poor, can't you be poor but also retain your values from the parents and the grandchildren so that they can raise the children despite the poverty, but raise them with values whereby they do not have to engage in risky sexual behavior at a tender age?
Yes, of course, the family and the culture is also part of the program. And that is where communication and education comes in. It's not just about the poverty. It is also about the attitude, the culture, where girls, to be seen to be mature, they've got to be women, they've got to be pregnant. And so in some families, it is prestigious for your girl to get married off and you get a grandchild. And not knowing that actually ruining that child's future, that girl's future. And so families are also being addressed through communication, through education, but also through getting these girls, these children to get into institutions and to get peer-to-peer support. So the efforts are in place to make sure that all of those issues do not continue.
All right. Thank you so much. Marion, you can hold on to your point there. We're going to come back to you. Let me come here in the studio with you, Stella. The issue of family, you talked about gender-based violence. Sometimes if the family has there's gender-based violence, maybe the children are going to in disarray, and probably they will not even stay in a home. But then those are issues, problems propagated by parents, by families. I wonder how much can the government do to ensure that we have families that are upright, morally upright, and they are able to raise their children in a manner that we would want them to. What can the government do in that case?
Government, thank you, Patrick. And I think the cow of Chankwanzi has actually, she has alluded to it by talking about continuous education and sensitization of parents and communities as well. We need to be able to continuously sensitize the families and also uphold the role of the community in ensuring that these young people are also doing the right thing. And unfortunately, the community eye or that community motherhood or fatherhood role has kind of dwindled in these times. And it is important that we step up the use of the community. And I was happy when the commissioner talked about the parish model. Maybe that is something, when we take it to those levels, we can be able to strengthen the community to look out for these young people, but also sensitization is key.
So maybe, would it be controversial to expose young people to contraceptive means of stopping pregnancy and stuff like that? Because probably that would be one way of stopping child marriages and people producing when they're young, but that can come with its own controversy in our cultures.
Yeah.
Mr. Simon.
maybe she giving it the shot, maybe if it's me, I would say it is an issue which has some moral and ethical connotation behind it. Is it really ethical and morally upright to give these children contraceptives? But we know, and we have information that some of these children are already exposed to these contraceptives, either through schools, either through peers, either through health facilities. So now the question is, what would be maybe the role of the family in terms of helping these adolescents to have the correct attitude, the correct values, because once you have all those, you may not need now to go back to the question of giving them contraceptives, because you have already equipped them with the knowledge and the life skills. But where you are unable to do that, I think the issues of morality and ethics, some people may argue that stop pregnancy and give these children the contraceptives. It's actually an issue which is still debatable, whether we need to advocate to give these children or adolescents the contraceptives, but there are the pros and cons for doing it or not doing it.
I wonder what, Stella, your think is on that issue, because we can't bury our heads in the sand and say, children are getting pregnant. It's true. That means they're engaging themselves in sex, and unprotected sex, and that's why they're even producing when they're young.
Yeah.
So the issue of morality and ethics on the side, we have a problem. And I remember somebody was introducing something called sexuality education, which was also very controversial in our country, so that people can maybe appropriate age kind of education to young girls and boys, so that they can take right choices and know what they're doing.
Yeah. So Patrick, the issue is giving age-appropriate information. The information you would give 12 to 15 years is not the same that you would give 16 to 19, for instance, or the information that you would give 10 to 13 should be packaged differently. So
but who is
it is
giving
important that information should be given in schools. The education sector now comes in. That information can be given by the community, by families. That information should be given by religious leaders, by cultural leaders. So we need to give age-appropriate information. And for the young people, I think that is the most important strategy that we should start with. But the issue of those that are sexually active and have already maybe given birth even, it is important that they access the contraceptives, because the statistics actually show that if they are not given contraceptives when they're already sexually active, they will now have even more kids. They will produce more and more.
Okay, I just want to bring in our people who are following us on Zoom, and I have ready Mr. Charles Mugude. Charles Mugude, you are the district chairperson, I suppose, of Kamuli. Thank you so much for joining us. And we know, for example, in the area of Busoga sub-region, if you compare it to other parts of Uganda, there's actually high teenage pregnancy in that area, more than anywhere else in our country. And one would ask why, and what can you do to stop it? And Mr. Mugude, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, brother. We thank you for hosting us. And the question you asked me, I first introduced myself, Mugude Charles Maxwell Gombla, chairperson of LC5 Kamuli District. In fact, the problem we're discussing today is cross-cutting. I have had my brothers there debate it and give their opinion, but it's more like mine. You asked me to tell you how the situation stands. In Kamuli and Busoga as a whole, this early marriage, teenage pregnancies are just such a big problem. I wanted to add my voice on what some brother of mine said. Kamara, you were wondering whether a responsible parent could send a child to go and look for food and look for a bread for the family, and how themselves, the mature people, sit back. I have a problem with the people we lead, that there is that syndrome of laziness. You choose to sit back and then you think somebody else is going to give you, especially for us, the politicians. And so this is rampant, that the children who are back at home, because there is a lockdown, they're not going to school. In our area, they are sent to go cut cane so that they can earn bread for their families. Mr. Kamara, this is true. And for parents, we need to call back the responsible parenthood so that somebody knows it very well. I had my sister Kao there said that even when you're poor, you need to grow up children with values. Yes, but this is now that has been left. There is a permissiveness amongst the parents. They don't care what their children do for as long as they get food. And what is painful is that they send the boys go and cut cane, and then they send their sisters, young sisters, that you go collect as you be binding, this one is cutting. So that is very true. And I think we need to go back to the community sensitization of their role. Yes, we could be ashamed of educating the parents on how to parent, but if they don't know, what do we do? So I think there should be a deliberate effort by our government to see that at least we call back our parents to order, so that they can also in turn call back to order their children. There is one problem. People think that by hiding contraceptives from the children, it helps. It doesn't. Brother Kamara, we must know that the age of 12 to 20 is such an adventurous age, and if you hide contraceptives from them, you are going to cause a lot of curiosity, and because they are so enthusiastic about what the role of those contraceptives is they are going to do it themselves, and sometimes the wrong way. So to me, I think sex and sexuality education to these children is very important, because when you give them that, it's not about just telling them about what contraceptives do, but you're also going to tell them the other bad side of it, especially if you started it at another age.
So,
Mr.
Chairman, if again in your area, and I was privileged to come to your district in Kamuli, and I saw
yes,
what civil society organizations are doing. For example, there are things they call shelter homes. And shelter
yes.
homes is where women are taken if they're abused in their homes, but people are supposed to take care for them and love them, I mean their husbands. So in other words,
yes.
You can actually see a district that has high incidences of gender-based violence. And if you have GBV, then it means the family is in disarray and the children won't be taken care of. I know there is that shelter home, but is it sustainable?
Yes.
Is it sustainable? What can be done ultimately to solve the issue of GBV that affects the child?
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kamara. That is very true. And I'm telling you that there is a lot of family disorder that is causing all these irregularities. What should be done? People need awareness. Somebody must have knowledge of how a sustainable family life, no matter poor or rich, is supposed to be kept, supposed to be administered. Because we find very many children marrying at the age of 14 because of the cruelty of their parents after they have conceived. And now this is what we want the parent to do. You'll be told that a child can be given a second chance even when they have become pregnant. After they have given birth, let them go back to school and then accepted back home. But if we don't do that, the child is going to be forced into another marriage. And what shall happen is that while the boy takes her, he's not ready for marriage. And you stay for the months that can help you avert the case, and then you begin battering the woman. You usually say it is gender-based violence between marrieds, but they are not yet ready for marriage. And therefore, awareness for the people and the parents to keep guiding these children so that they don't marry at another age is important.
All right.
Then also,
all right, you can hold
a
on.
deliberate effort by government should be put into place to enforce, not again impoverishing the local governments, because there is nothing that can be done tangibly if there is no facilitation. And there is that deliberate effort, affirmative action by government in areas of gender through the district or local government structures, so that desensitization is widely done.
All right. I want to thank you, Mr. Mugude there. You can hold on to your points because we're going to come back to you. Let me get into the studio here with the Stella and and Balam. Stella, one of the, maybe a solution would be to ensure the girls are in school, and if they continue school, then they can delay early marriage. No one would want to get them, married when they are in school. We have a universal primary education, you have universal senior education, and probably government should think about how you can continue having girls in school, because that would be a proper way of protecting them.
Yes, I think you have said it. Education is actually the cheapest, should I call it contraceptive out there. Once the girl stays in school for at least 14 years or more, they'll be able to prolong the onset of, sexual debut, and also avoid teenage pregnancy. Because if they study for 14 years at the very least, that means they'll complete the primary, and those are 7 years, plus also complete the senior 6 years, and maybe add on 2 of vocation or tertiary and gain a skill. So it is important. And the challenges that we have is that you've heard that the teenage pregnancy rate is 25%, but that is even higher in rural areas. And rural areas, the challenges are that the schools are actually so far apart. Children walk long distances to get to those schools, in spite of the fact that there are the universal secondary education and the UPE. So it's the issue of enforcement and informing the parents to ensure that they take the children to the schools that are nearby. But yes, education is actually a very good strategy for being able to tackle this vice of
Mr. Mujushe, when you look at our country, you realize there's a spike of some of these issues of teenage pregnancy and GBV in some areas, and in some areas it is less. So I wonder, why do we see a spike in some areas and of these problems, like Mr. Megude told us in the areas of Busoga?
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. What I can attribute this one to is the level of awareness and extent of participation of the various stakeholders. If the level of awareness and action being taken by the stakeholders against these issues is high, we would definitely see action and the trends that you have just talked about. But some of these things happen because people are lacking information. Some of these things happen like what my colleague here was saying. Access to education is not easy. But fortunately, what I had talked about earlier, all these are in government policies. As you are aware, each parish is supposed to have a government primary school,
yes,
in addition to these privately owned institutions. So that policy will now bring nearer a facility, at least to the community, so that they are able to take these children to school. And then relatedly, we also have these government workers. How they are involved in terms of mobilization, in terms of sensitization, also has an impact. Because they are already well-set policies, policy on the GBV, the policy on sexual reproductive health, all these are in place. But how we are interpreting them and implementing them at our community level, I think also brings in those disparities. I don't have the clear facts, but those are the main reasons behind some of these trends that you have just mentioned.
Stella, the young people have that dynamism. The young people are a potential. In fact, you people in the population, you always say that you're working so hard so that we can have what you call the demographic dividend, so that they can be useful, they can be of value, they can add and into the economic development. But are you, are you confident that as a country we shall harness the potential of young people to get demographic dividend? Yet I don't see you actually, as government, investing in them for you to achieve that.
Thank you, Patrick. I think government has actually made very good progress in ensuring that we work towards harnessing of the demographic dividend. And this is actually very well articulated in the National Development Plan 3, which has programs and pillars that focus on human capital development. And now more than ever, under those programs in the National Development Plan 3, the strategy of harnessing the demographic dividend has actually been very well articulated. And in articulating it, they look at how to contribute to the dividend by ensuring programs to do with education, what we've talked about keeping the children in school. And it's not only the girl child. Yesterday, I think there was a colleague here who talked about it, that even boys need to be paid attention to. Also aspects of skilling, very, very key. But the demographic dividend, which I will just maybe briefly articulate it, which refers to the economic or accelerated economic growth that can be realized when a country invests in its young people in terms of health, in terms of skilling, in terms of employment, as well as good governance. So for us to realize the demographic dividend, all those things have to fall in place, and they have to be paid, equal attention has to be paid to each of them. You cannot focus on one at the expense of the other. And for Uganda, that accelerated, we must see an accelerated decline in fertility to be able to have the first steps of harnessing the DD.
So what did
and the fertility decline, we are beginning to see it, Patrick. So do not despair. There is a transition that is happening. When you look at Uganda's fertility trends, our fertility rate used to be in the upper 6 right now, and it was stuck there for a very long time, 6 children per woman or 7 children at one time. Now it's coming down. We are currently at 5, 5.4 or 5 children per woman. And the difference of 2 children seems very small, but it is quite big as well. And that is, it shows the signs of a demographic transition. The transition has begun, and we cannot go to sleep yet. More needs to be done, actually, to be able to accelerate the demographic transition.
Again, the other thing that can delay maybe a lady from having a child, girl from having children is again school. Because by the time they go through school, college or university, probably they're not going to have as many as they would have had if they started at the age of 16. We still have to add 1 million people on our population almost every year. You know the figures more than I do. But that is a big figure to add. I think we have the third fastest, or the
Third fastest.
the third fastest growing population in the world.
Yes.
That is huge, Mr. Mwijushe. And I wonder whether we need to do more to reduce on that, because the economy and our resources may not be able to sustain that population. Okay, they could sustain that population if the economy was advanced.
Yeah. And
Okay, what you are saying, Patrick, is an issue that can be, that can attract a debate. Because if you compare the population of, say, Uganda and other countries, in terms of numbers, I think that is not a serious issue. But when you look at the quality, I think that's where now the issues come in. whether we are adding 1 million or we are adding maybe 200,000. To me, the question is about the quality, not the actual numbers.
Okay.
If we look at it that way, and if we don't have deliberate programs to ensure that the quality of these added Ugandans improves, then we are in trouble. But the good thing is that we shouldn't look at the glass as half empty.
Okay.
I think we should look at it as half full because of the interventions that really government is advancing and putting in place to address some of these issues.
Balam, hold on to your point there. I just want to bring in people who are joining us on Zoom. And I'm going to advise on Zoom, if you can turn down the volume of your TV, or maybe you mute the TV so that it doesn't bring an echo. Earlier I had an echo there. I have, I think, still on standby, Mr. William Kasoro. And William Kasoro, you are the district chairperson for Ntoroko in the Rwenzori sub-region. We earlier had you, but there was a little of disconnection there. So if you can continue telling us the challenges, because your region also has a problem of teenage pregnancy. The push factors and how are you dealing with it, Mr. Kasoro? Unfortunately, I'm not able to hear you. I can see you. I was hearing the noise in the background, but maybe you can try again, Mr. Kasoro.
Can you get me, Patrick?
Yes, now I'm hearing you loud and clear. Continue, please.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. In the Rwenzori sub-region and specifically in Toroko, the push factors for this problem of the challenges of accessing education, like the other participants have contributed. You find children, especially girls, walk long distances to go to primary schools. Yes, it is true, government has put in place a policy of having a primary school in every parish and a secondary school in every sub-county, but there are some sub-counties that do not have.
Okay. Again.
Secondary schools. So
okay. Please continue. Okay.
I request would be that government violence issues and also terrain, but rather the bad terrain in the district.
We have lost the communication line. It's not loud and clear anymore, Mr. Kasoro there. But you're telling us about the issue of education, and then I think you concluded by telling us the bad terrain. I know in Ntoroko some part is a little bit mountainous, I think in the areas of Karugutu, but also you have the lake areas, so I wonder how that is affecting the sub-counties of Kanara and all these places, and Rwebisengo. Okay, we are going to get back to you, Mr. Kasoro, but I think I'm trying to get another person online. But the network is really bad. I wonder if I can still get the cow for Chankwanzi, Marion Pamela, cow Chankwanzi.
Yes.
Yes, you can. Yes, I'm online.
Okay, Marion Pamela, just you have heard from the district chairpersons, you have heard from the commissioner, and you have heard from Stella. I mean, what would be your submission in this discussion, given what you have heard so far?
I beg your pardon?
You have heard from all these panelists. What would be your submission in the discussion, given what you have heard so far?
Yes, my submission is that to address those issues, we need to have the facilities in place, and indeed the facilities are in place. Whereas it is true that not all the parishes have got secondary school, primary schools, government aided, I think as a country we've reached, and the district, if I must talk for Chankwanzi, we've reached a level where we don't have the government aided primary school, we've got at least a private school. And yes, the long distances are there, but the private schools come in and mitigate. And the partners also support and make sure that some of those issues that affect and influence adolescents are mitigated. In terms of secondary schools, the government is putting in place under a special fund facilities, and gradually we'll have every sub-county with the secondary schools, because the efforts are there to ensure that this happens. And yes, we need to get on board all the different parties and partners, and this is happening through the community-based services department. The issue of domestic violence, the issue of child marriages, the issue of school dropouts is being addressed through mobilization, through sensitization, through communication. And also the other issue that is happening is the issue of institutions, ensuring that through the resources that are sent to local governments, we put in place facilities that can encourage the girl child to stay in school. Because part of the reason of these early marriages and pregnancies is the girls dropping out of school, because maybe the facilities out there are not user-friendly. A young girl gets into her periods, the toilets are not separated, the senior women teachers have not talked to her or have not prepared her for what might come. And when we go back to the families, maybe the parents have those other issues about the parents. The mother is not able to sit down this girl and tell her what is coming to her. But it's being mitigated by the presence of the senior women teachers in the schools out there, by the presence of facilities, sanitary facilities that can ensure privacy of the girls when they're in their periods. And all this is geared towards ensuring that they stay at school.
Okay.
And then sorry?
All right. Okay, you can conclude your point there before I bring in another person.
Okay, and then regarding the poverty trends and poverty levels, the youth-friendly services, among others, talk about ensure the progress of the children, but also the different government affirmative programs ensure that the children that may not necessarily be in school but they are still adolescents can get a penny or two, so that they are not enticed by vouchers that would want to take advantage of their poverty.
All right, Marion, Pamela, I want to thank you. Please stay online. We'll get back to you. Marion raises a very important issue for the girl child and sanitary facilities in schools, because this could happen, and then at the end of the day, if they are not prepared, they may not want to go back to school. But also, in some families, they may not afford the sanitary towels. Your take, Mr. Mwijushe.
Thank you. And regarding what my sister Marion has talked about, I definitely agree with her. But what I had earlier said, we need to look at the glass as half full, not empty. There are efforts, particularly in government-aided schools, to have in place facilities, especially toilets and urinals for both boys and girls, to have in place a dedicated person to counsel, to give advice to the girl child. All these people are in place. And then alongside that, we have a number of programs for those who are even outside the formal education. She talked about the Community Development Department. This cuts across the entire country, And within that sector, we also look at the youth outside school. We have programs that run under functional adult literacy, and they look at the family. They look at GBV issues. They look at school dropout. They encourage peer education and training and follow-up. So through these interventions, a government is able to address some of those issues, although it may not be as expected 100% in some places, but the strategy and policies are there to address some of these issues.
Okay. The policies have always been there, and the strategy and the programs, and many people, commend us for making very good strategies and preparation and policies. Our problem still has always been to work on those issues so that they can bring value to the people of Uganda.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. I think, as you rightly said, we're very good at the policy development. We have very smart policies, and the issue would be on implementation. But I am actually confident that with the new programming, the guidelines by government, or the new perspective under the National Development Plan of working on issues, on programs as not as sectors, but collaboratively, as the Commissioner said, multi-sectoral approach, we can be able to contribute. For instance, one issue like teenage pregnancy, you would have the Ministry of Agriculture contributing. Why the girls maybe are not staying in school? Could it be an issue of nutrition? Maybe they don't have food. Maybe it's an issue of, at home they don't have food, so they are looking, they don't go to school, but you find them on the streets looking for something to take back home. How can the ministry be able to, teach them that they can be able to utilize whatever foods that they have, local foods in the community, to get nutritive diets. It can also be an aspect of the Ministry of Health working together with the Ministry of Local Government, and it is actually a key collaboration that we have. Ministry of Local Government working, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, all key sectors coming together. You can be able to ensure that this challenge is met in a multi-sectoral collaboration. But also civil society, now more than ever, has picked interest in this issue. Partners have come on board to support the implementation of programs, development of programs, and also they are supporting government efforts to ensure that the girl child stays in school.
All right. Yeah. Stella and Balam and our panelists who are joining us on Zoom, we're going to take a very quick break, and this broadcast will be right back. Welcome back. You're watching this special broadcast. We're coming to you live from Serena, and we are talking about issues affecting young people, especially teenage pregnancy. That's a big problem in Uganda. My guests in the studio are Stella Kigozi Makumbi, who's Director, Information and Communication at the National Population Council. We also have Assistant Commissioner in charge of Planning at the Ministry of Local Government, Mr. Simwe Balam Mwijuche. But we also have people who are joining us by virtual means on Zoom. We have Andrew Napeja, who's the District Chairperson for Moroto. We have the Kao Chankwanzi, who's the Marion Pamela Tokahurirwa. We have the District Chairperson for Ntoroko, Kasoro Williams. We also have the District Chairperson for Kamuli, Charles. So I'll be getting all those colleagues on Zoom to continue with giving us their perspective. We never had an opportunity to hear from Andrew Napeja from Moroto District. And Andrew Napeja, you're the district chairperson. And Moroto is also a place that has a problem, a spike of teenage pregnancy. We would want to hear how big the problem is and how are you dealing with it, and what would be your prescription to change the situation. Andrew, if you can. Andrew, we are waiting here to hear. Andrew from Moroto, we are waiting to hear from you. Unfortunately, we are still having communication challenges to reach Andrew in Moroto. We also have comm challenges to Andrew. Unfortunately, I'm able to hear the ambience or the voices around you, but I'm not hearing you, and that's funny. All right. Maybe let's go back to Kamuli, where we had the Kamuli district chairperson. Charles, if you can hear me.
Kamara?
Yes, sir, Charles. Just tell us what you plan to do now to solve the problem you earlier talked about.
Yeah, what we plan to do?
Yes.
First, I wanted to make a comment on what my sister was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And brother, was brother from Toroko.
Yes.
They were talking about a retainable population, mm-hmm, and just a size of population that is not easily retainable for any task that brings about development and sustainability in the development of a country. And the theme that you sent us, Mr. Kamara, was that the Population Council sent us was that strengthening local government actions to end child or early marriages and teenage pregnancies. There is something that we have got to do. Mr. Kamara, our laws in Uganda here are very good and on paper. Even when we don't amend them now or add others, the ones that are there are good to go if properly enforced. I want to talk about one element that is almost killing everything, even in service delivery where we are in local governments. This problem is corruption. When you find a place where there are problems of early pregnancies and teenage marriages, you realize that the law has been hidden. It has been locked up because you find parents negotiating such a case to set free a filer. And then they force this young girl to go marry a person who has made them pregnant. And now you go to police, still the same thing. They don't allow these cases reach the court. And sometimes if they're not brought to book, people have no reason to fear this evil. The vice continues because they know after all, you'll get some little money, give to the needy parents, and finally nothing is done. So we need seriousness in as far as enforcement of our laws is concerned.
But also,
and while you ask me
what
we are going to do.
But also, Mr. Chairman, I wonder what your view is on the issue of a girl who has been raped, and then the case is taken to court. First of all, filling in those papers alone is very traumatizing at the police. They'll be asking a lot of questions to put up a statement. And also, if you went to court, sometimes the lawyers can just, tear the young girl apart, asking questions that can make her relive the whole episode of what she went through. What would be the best way so that these children can have justice, but also you don't make them relieve the trauma of what they have gone through? Because I think that's an issue as well.
All right. Mr. Kamara, I do agree with you that sometimes this trauma makes other people just leave everything the way it is. But what I would propose that should be done, fine, you withhold the identity of the girl, protect the girl, but you still go ahead and do something professional. Because if we all know that out of explanation fatigue and trauma we are going to fear to handle this, then we are going to leave the problem continue and it goes unabated. I would propose that yes, the identity of the girl is withheld, but the law takes course. The parents continue pursuing this case because when you talk about the girl, we cannot protect the girl away from explanations when we are not able to protect her from the things that could cause her uh, conceived at a time she is not prepared. So I would propose that yes, it has come, that she has conceived early at an early age, but we still need to show that this law can bite and that the officials also act professional. You handle a child knowing that this is a person that did not enter this act with consent. We very well know that they are underage. Before 18 years, somebody cannot decide for themselves. And so when you ask questions, it's like you don't ask the questions as if you want to win the girl, but you should ask questions that are protecting the girl's plight. And more emphasis is put on the person that could have made this girl pregnant. And so that person is brought to book. Otherwise, if the law is not enforced properly, in the name of corruption, kitu kidogo, we are going to leave this and it will affect us. And Mr. Kamara, about the population, what we intend to do, people have family planning devices that they are supposed to use. It is a national strategy about controlling population. At one point, the president of Uganda was talking about his positivities about big population and equating us to Singapore, China, and showing how good a big population is. But this big population that cannot sustain itself, that is not retainable for any task that is developmental and that can help economic growth, still remains a burden. Can we go ahead and improve the size of population that we have so that every head we add, we know that we are adding onto productivity? But Mr. Kamara, even the grown-up people claim we don't have jobs. But these people have chunks of land which they have just let out to cane growers. We are not doing work ourselves. So we need to do much at the local level, even before we reach court. We need some improvement on how sensitization is done, on how we preserve values, on how we parent our children so that we can solve this. But in doing that, everyone has a role to play.
Okay.
The parents, government, the local government, and also the children themselves.
All right. I think you have put it very proper there. Comprehensive. Everybody has a role to play, from the girl child, the boy child, the family or the parents, the communities in which they live, the local councils, the government, and the cultural leaders. And we are lucky we have all these cultural leaders. How far have you gone in working with the cultural leaders, Stella, so that they can address this issue of teenage pregnancy and child marriages?
Thank you, Patrick. The National Population Council, working with the line ministries, Ministry of Gender, and also our local government partners, the district local governments, have actually reached out to cultural leaders in different parts of the country. We have worked with the cultural institutions right from the Toro Kingdom, I think where you come from, where you hail from.
Yeah.
I don't know if you hold a position there.
I used to be a minister in Toro Kingdom. So you're
yes,
speaking somebody very big.
Yeah, so we have worked with the kingdoms like that, with the Buganda Kingdom, working with the Office of the Nabagereka, also stretching even to work with the route from Acholi. So we actually work with cultural institutions to put across this message in the culturally sensitive way, but we need to really step up. More effort is needed to ensure that the consistency of these messages. But yes, we do work with the cultural leaders, and in places where we have actually approached the population through the cultural leaders, there have been at least some, like positive reception from the communities.
Okay, positive reception is a good thing you're telling us. And let me also try to go back to Ntoroko. I was trying to get in touch to Williams Kasoro, who's the district chairperson Ntoroko, and earlier you're telling us your challenges. I want to try my luck again to see if the network is going to allow so that we can hear a little more from Williams Kasoro. Yes, the floor is yours, William.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay.
Still on the challenging, you'll find securing justice for the victims of sexual and gender-based violence is very, very difficult in Morocco because these offenses are triable by a grade 1 magistrate, and we have no grade 1 magistrates court stationed in Morocco. And so, follow-up of these offenders against these early pregnancy and the child deferment cases becomes very, very difficult. You also find there is a challenge of law adherence to voluntary birth registration, and when a case goes to court and there is no birth certificate to prove the age of the victim, definitely the case collapses. There is also a problem, a challenge of collusion between the parents, like my brother, the district person Kamoli submitted, a collusion between the parents, police, and some political leaders on how to compromise these cases. So if we do not punish the offenders, then the child marriages and the teenage pregnancies will definitely continue because there is no deterrence against these negative practices that we do not want, that are deterring the development of our people, our teenagers.
So Williams, you're pointing out that sometimes the parents who can collude with the police in a case there has been a teenage pregnancy, and probably you wanted the perpetrators to be punished. So what can you do to ensure that parents have values, parents can raise their children in a manner that is expected of them? How do you sensitize them?
Patrick, we always have investment, community-based services, have radio programs, but also we lack adequate funding for these programs. Now that we have very many priorities do with the flood victims, the refugees, the COVID is also here with us, but we have programs to guide parents on positive parenting through dialogues, to inform them about the benefits of allowing the girl children to continue in school, acquire skills so that they become productive, so that we also benefit from them. We are also, as a district, supporting integrated community outreaches for people to access sexual at the community level and at our health facility. We are doing that. And we also encourage parents to do sex education during this time, because COVID is not allowing them to get that education since schools are closed.
Okay. You can hold on. We want to thank you, William. We want to thank you so much for your contribution so far. We'll get back to you. I still want to hear from Karamoja, from Moroto. I'm going to try once more. At least we've had each one of you now, apart from Moroto. So I still want to hear from Andrew, if we can, because there's a problem in Moroto as well. And we want to know how big the problem is and what you're doing to give a solution. Andrew, if you can help me, I'm giving you another platform now.
Hello?
Yes, Andrew, now we can hear you. Andrew, please go right ahead.
Hello?
Yes, Andrew, we can hear you now, so please go right
Hello?
ahead.
Wow.
Okay.
You know,
It's a pity I can't see. I think Andrew is not hearing us, though now we are hearing him. That was some development because we were able to hear his voice at least. So how there are government vocational institutions that have been built in different districts, including where I come from. But when you look at the enrollment, it is very low. And earlier you talked about skills, that if you skill these young people and you give them what to do, they become busy. Probably they will not be thinking, both girls and boys will not be thinking in engaging in some of these behaviors that can end up children getting pregnant or getting married early. Why is it that we still have very poor enrollment in institutions that really should be a game changer for Uganda? Balam.
Thank you, Patrick. I wish to state at this moment that the issue of mindset of Ugandans needs to be addressed, because the raw enrollment in these institutions is about how people conceive education. Because somebody would want to go primary, secondary, university, and so forth and so on. But is it the only way to achieve in this country, in this world? So the issue of mindset, that somebody must go through that system, I think needs to be tackled. And at this point, I would wish to make an appeal to our listeners, and particularly our local government leaders. Because at every level of local government, we have various categories of secretaries, production, education, information, and so forth and so on. Through our structures and leaders, we need to have the right mindset that will transform this country. It is not necessarily or only the academic excellence that is going to transform the country and the individual. These skills are very, very much important, and that's why government came up with these BTVET institutions. Most you can imagine, if somebody finishes a BTVET, say taking a carpentry course or a mechanics course, it is easier to get employment than somebody who has again gone through the other form education and came up with a bachelor of something, because the other one easily gets absorbed in what the community requires.
They are also telling us that in some cases, people are going through university and they get the degrees, but they are not employable.
It also leads into that. You get a university degree, but the skill which you have come up with is not there. You have no skill. So nobody will need you. Even if, say, you are in accounts, you have never kept books of accounts for an institution like this one, NTV. Do you think they are going to employ you? Definitely no. But if you have that skill, where you can apply your hand, where you can apply your mental faculty, you can quickly get absorbed into the trades in the economy that are lacking the labor force.
I think also, Stella, that when children are going to school, even all of us are going through school, some of those values that have probably helped are not necessarily the values you picked from school. I'm talking about issues of integrity, issues of reliability, issues of time management, issues of respect, issues like those. You know, those are the things I suppose you can only get from a home. And yet, we are being told now that it's a problem at a family level because a typical Ugandan parent probably is lacking, you know, in values of raising a child with respect, a child with values, a child who understands work and stuff like that. Because now you're going to, if you have money and maybe you are a corporate Ugandan, instead of letting the children work at home, probably you're going to bring a maid and all this kind of stuff. And then they will raise when they actually do not know how to work. So how do you make sure you salvage the Ugandan family? Because from there, it's the bedrock of building a person that is whole.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. I think the issue goes back to the mindset, right from the, family level. How does the family work together? How is the family set up actually enhancing the issue of values? Do they have the community? How do they work together even outside the home? And the mindset change, yes, is quite key in this, but Patrick, also the role of community leaders cannot be forgotten, and also our leaders in local government. So in the strengthening of the family, we must also ensure that the community gets also to, it's strengthened as well so that they can be able to support the family. And there are challenges, especially in, as these young people are growing up, sometimes they maybe feel that the family is being too tough on them. But it is important that we do not let go of our responsibilities. We need to go back to our values. And I also liked, I think, the cow of Chankwanzi expressed it very well, the role of the family. It is something that we need to be able to support more, and it comes also with a lot of sensitization and mobilization.
Now that you've talked about Marion Pamela in Chankwanzi, I want to come back to you, Marion Pamela, because as a cow, I want to know what commitment can you make on behalf of the chief administrative officers to address this issue, Marion Pamela.
Thank you. The commitment really is about us ensuring that mobilization is done, follow-up is done, enforcement is done, and the stakeholders are all brought on board. As indicated by the different panelists, part of the problem is poor communication and information flow. And it is our responsibility to make sure that all the stakeholders, especially the government stakeholders, during the implementation of the program, do take cognizance of the problem at hand and factor it in their various activities. And also, it is a commitment and a responsibility on our side to make sure that the different other actors that are non-state are put on board. They're involved in the planning meetings, they're involved in execution, they're involved in the monitoring, but also they are used.
Marion Pamela, we are getting interruption. I don't know whether it's from you or somewhere else, but there's feedback and ambience around you. And if it's not from you, I'm sorry to say that.
Not from me.
All right, sorry about that. I think some of our colleagues who are on the virtual, you need to mute your audio, so when you're not talking, so that it does not send the ambience around you. And for that matter, let me, as we continue this discussion, in Toroko, you are a border district. You are mountainous in one area, but you also have a lake in the other side. So the terrain is very different. You have fishermen, you have also people crossing the border, you have refugees coming in. And so your problem is big. I wonder, those unique problems, how you are handling them, Mr. Kasoro.
Yes, Patrick, we have enormous problems. But as a local government, we have set aside a piece of land for UNHCR and officials of the Prime Minister to set up a temporary transit camp for these people who are seeking asylum, transferred to resettlement camps, permanent resettlement camps. So, and we have also put in place screening on COVID-19, and yeah, we are handling within our means, but we acknowledge the government support, and we also thank the partners who have kept us moving.
So in most cases, we have had a problem that we sit in places like these and maybe talk about programs and policies, but they don't reach the people who should be listening to them. You have communities around Lake Albert in Kanara and wherever. If you have information, how do you make sure that you have sensitized those people at the lake shores or up in the mountains? How do you get to them? Because it is one thing to talk about these good things, but then you risk to be making sense only to yourselves.
It is true, Patrick. Getting the information to the people who need it is a challenge in local, but we are using the radio stations in Port Portal. Sometimes these radio stations do not have a coverage in some of the parts in the district.
Okay. I think, Williams, I think I'm going to stop. Williams, your network has gotten problems right now. And so we're going to hold on that. And then let me once again bring in the district chairperson for Kamuli. District chairperson for Kamuli, you've heard about submissions from the cow and submission from Stella and from Balam. I want to hear from you on these issues once more. Mr. Chairperson, maybe you have muted your audio so I can't hear you.
Okay. Do you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I do.
Oh, thank you. In the earlier submission I made,
okay,
I made a point that everyone have got to keep in their lane. Someone has got to play their role so that a combination of us all can bring this to a solution. Because in trying to fight this evil of early pregnancies, we all have a role to play, because where the parent is not where the child is. Where local government is not where the central government is. And so every one of us have got to do their work well. But I want to bring in this, that for all of us Ugandans who have looked at this problem, one, as parents, we even have big people, big men, who are defiling these children and who should have taught at least these children the morals. Mr. Kamara, I want to say that as parents, the social norms should at least be encouraged among our children by ourselves. It is good you called in the cultural leaders. I have been reading, ever since I grew up, I've been reading about the female genital mutilation as a cultural norm, which also encouraged some immoral activities that could lead to early pregnancies. Talk about the cultural ceremonies of Imbalu in Gisu, where even mature people are moving with the children, but sexual intercourse is said to be part of ceremonies that also help the Imbalu be carried out well. Thank God there is some bit of change one of these days. The permissiveness and the promiscuity in society that is looked at freely and easily, at least should stop. Mr. Kamara, when I submitted earlier, you asked me what I were intending to do. One, I told you there are very many laws on paper that we intend to awaken, to try at least and ignite the enforcement bodies, the enforcement centers, to see that at least in our region we overcome, or if not overcome it, because the problem is yet big, but you can reduce. When you go back to the culture, when you go back to the religious norms, when you awaken police, because if you stop a file at police and you don't take it to court, then the defiler just walks away with it. It really encourages the potential to do the same. So to me, as a person, I think very well that using the district structures, the local government structures up to LC1, we give them a chance to also handle this, at least if their handling is up to reporting to the LC3, if it is up to reporting to the LC5 or to the gender department, which is actually supposed to specifically handle those problems, then we should empower them to do that. But above all, the sensitization and mobilization must be done.
Okay.
And also, we should make sure that our parenting gives such guidance to children. You as a parent, why do you feel salt just send a child to a market where there are very many people? You want a kilo of salt and you are sending a girl child to the market in the evening? That is irresponsibility.
All right.
At least there is somebody mature you can send so that you can avoid the temptations that this girl could meet on the way.
Charles, I want to thank you. Charles Mugude Maxwell, District Chairperson for Kamuli. I want to thank you so much. You've been very useful in giving us value in understanding some of the things and also the challenges you meet. Now, listening to the CAO, listening to the District Chairperson, you as the Commissioner Planning, I wonder, what do you think should be prioritized as support to these districts in order to stop the problem that we see? What should you prioritize? Because you've had a lot of challenges that they're telling you.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. May first have a rejoinder to two things. One is that government has come up with NDP3. And under NDP3, the thrust or the gist of the plan is a holistic approach. And this will break the silos which institutions hitherto have been accustomed to people working in silos, but now the problems will be solved and addressed in a more holistic manner. Two, at the grassroots level, again, government has come up with another strategy, which is popularly known as the parish development model. And again, the silo approach of delivering services to the people is at the core of this strategy. So, what we are going to see more and more is more targeted and unified interventions by the different government stakeholders, more coordination, and also there is a very, very big issue coming up now in terms of the mindset that which all these colleagues from the local governments have been talking about. Issues which need to be addressed through mobilization, issues which need to be addressed through sensitization. And under that parish model, one of the pillars is to deliver mindset change. And these are the issues that we will be speaking to during the implementation.
We have a ministry, I think, of national guidance. I thought maybe it could also help.
Yeah, we have. What I was saying that in this strategy of working as the whole of government, not national guidance working alone, not local government working alone, not gender working alone. These issues have been now brought on the radar of all these institutions so that we can address them with a uniform message, with a uniform strategy and avoiding duplication. For instance, the issues of GBV, the issues of these local councils not having the powers to handle some of these problems arising, I think will no longer be tenable, because the approach now is that you have the knowledge, you have the power, then go ahead and address the peculiar issues that affect teenage pregnancies, that affect development, that affect people really not being productively engaged in economic and social activities. So that's how we are looking at it as a local government and as a government. There is that process which is ongoing.
Let me ask our panelists on Zoom to give us concluding remarks. I'm going to begin with you, the district chairperson for Ntoroko, Williams Kasoro.
Thank you, Patrick. I was still submitting information on how, as a district in Ntoroko local government, we are disseminating message on against teenage pregnancies. We are using partnerships at community levels and our structures. The CDOs are doing outreaches. We also have Face for Family Health Initiatives, a local NGO by our religious leaders, headed by Reverend Father Diachiraho Deus and Pastor Bamloho from Town Council, that is involved in sensitizing through their churches. The only unfortunate part of it is that the COVID has caused the closure of these programs. But we are also trying to look at an idea of having a regional youth development project on health, education, and social protection for Rwenzori sub-region. We were yesterday discussing during the pre-conference meeting on World Population Day with the district planner of Bunyangabu, who is a very strong supporter of this idea that if we can, as Rwenzori sub-region, team up the leaders and the technical team to address the issues of teenage pregnancies and early marriages, we can go a long way because these issues are largely to do with the culture, the challenges we have, and so people may get girls from Ntoroko, have them married off in Nyangabu or Kasese. But if it is if there is a regional approach, a regional youth development project, we can, as leaders, support and request the government, the central government, facilitate and fund our activities. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, thank you so much, William Kasoro there. At least you have told us what you're planning to do. You seem to be very committed to those things. We wish you the best there. And maybe ultimately and slowly we can see some change. And the girls in Uganda and in Ntoroko in particular can keep in school and be of value to their families and of value to our nation. Let me go to you, Mr. Charles Mugude Maxwell from Kamuli with your concluding remark.
All right, thank you, Brother Patrick. I would like to give my conclusion as being that ultimately, as government, we have to well and critically identify the occasions of these two vices, the early marriages and early pregnancies. Call it teenage marriages and teenage pregnancies, and then there be able to empower our communities with knowledge so that we create awareness of how dangerous and bad these two vices can affect the community negatively. Thereafter, we need to adequately empower the local government structures where you have to consider them even in budgeting, that while they do this, it involves movements, it involves meetings, so that you facilitate at least meagerly their movements to the communities they're going to handle. Because you cannot do it in your home. away from the COVID problem. I think when we go over it, we can move from one place to another and therefore disseminate information on how these two can affect us. I want to call upon fellow parents and Ugandans to just begin living a responsible life. And we have to change the stereotype of thinking that the leaders we have voted for in power are going to give us everything, and that you don't work, but you call the children to go to work to earn a living for the family. That's very painful. At the end of the day, we parents are the ones that are expected to earn a living for our children while we teach them. So thank you, Mr. Kamara, but it is supposed to be a deliberate effort by government to empower the local government structures so that this is done, because from the center, it can hardly be enforced. All we require from the center is to reawaken the laws, our good laws that are lying on paper, to see that at least the community is fearful of the law that bites.
Mr. Charles Mugude Maxwell, LC5 chairperson for Kamuli, I want to thank you so much for your submission. And so now let me go to Marion Pamela, the Chief Administrative Officer for Chankwanzi, so that we can hear your concluding remarks on this discussion.
Thank you very much. The silos of planning have been broken, and we can now support each other via the different resources in the various departments. And so it will take each of us to ensure that we recognize that the problem is there and address it. And we also need to commit and continue using the structures of government, of the political leaders, and the various other actors that touch the ground to inform and mobilize our families and communities about the problem, but also to facilitate those that may not have the ability to get the information across to the law enforcers. We also need to keep encouraging our partners and stakeholders to keep supporting the cause of ending child marriages, and also help ensure that the facilities that are in place are user-friendly for our children, our girls, in order for them not to get out of school. Lastly, we need to ensure that we keep a close eye on the various institutions that are responsible for this girl child, especially as supervisors and monitors, to have them do what they're supposed to do to protect and curb the vice of early marriages.
Thank you so much, Marion Pamela there in Chankwanzi. I want to thank all of you there who have joined us, Marion Pamela, Charles Mugude Maxwell, Williams Kasoro, and Andrew. We did not get an opportunity to talk to Andrew because of communication challenges. So our panelists on Zoom, we say kwaheri. Thank you so much. You've been so valuable this evening. We've learned a lot from you, and have also suggested a lot of solutions. I'm sure people in managing the affairs of our country are listening to you, and perhaps this will change for the better of the Ugandan child. And so, Commissioner, you have concluding remark.
Thank you. I want to thank the listeners who have been with us all this time since the session began. And I appeal that this is a multi-sector responsibility. The challenges for teenage pregnancy and early marriages are there, but in a multi-sector approach, we will be able to overcome. And from the perspective of government, we have the programs, we have the policies, and we shall support our institutions at the local government level to ensure that these challenges of early marriage and teen pregnancy continue to be handled in the manner that I have just mentioned, multi-sector. And lastly, the local government ministry usually conducts induction for leaders, and these are some of the issues that we always interact with, and we have a program soon in the course of this financial year are going to interact with leadership and bring to the forefront these issues that we have just talked about.
Thank you so much. Very briefly, Stella, your parting shot.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. I want, as we end, to further contextualize this discussion that we're having today. This discussion today was basically for us to hear from the local government leaders on how they can strengthen strategies to address child marriage and teenage pregnancy as part of the discussion around the 2021 World Population Day event. And with support of partners, the development partners, the UNFPA, the Netherlands Embassy, and partners in the Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Alliance, we convened a pre-World Population Day dialogue for district leaders in Rwenzori sub-region. And the issues that the leaders have talked about today were actually, they were shared, and the 9 districts in that sub-region came up with strong recommendations. And among some of those recommendations is the issue, of course, of enforcement. They want to be able to strengthen enforcement because a lot of stories are coming out. Yes, the teenage pregnancies are happening, child marriages, but how do we enforce? And then also to let you know, Patrick, that a quality population is the greatest resource that we have as a country.
All right.
Thank you.
Stella Kigozi Makumbi, thank you so much. Commissioner Balam Asim Mujucha, I want to thank you. And the district chairpersons who joined us, plus the cow for Chankwanzi, I want to thank you. But I also want to thank you, our viewers, for the great company. Good night, and God bless you.